Hello, everybody. I welcome you all to our virtual session today with some colleagues and some friends and experts from Canada. I am Sybille Kornitschky. You can call me Sybille. I'm responsible for Jazzahead Festival and, of course, the trade fair. Jazzahead and the partnership with Canada has a long history now. Since many years, Canada is represented at Jazzahead by two big players, CIMA and the Conseil québécois de la musique, as well as the embassy in Berlin. In 2020, we have invited Canada to become our first partner country from overseas. This had to be transferred to 2021 due to the pandemic. And for the same reason, we have postponed it again to 2022, thanks to the broader engagement of the Canada Council for the Arts. Together, we decided not to wait until next year to give you a deeper insight in this wonderful country, this wonderful big and diverse country, offering such an exciting jazz scene. Canada claims the title of the second biggest country in the world. Canada's size is over 9.9 million square kilometers, with a population of 37 million people. Compared to the European Union, this means that Canada is roundabout twice as big as the European Union and which counts more than 447 million people. Just to give you a quick overview. Today, we want to draw a first portrait of Canada's jazz scene. We want to let you know what is important to know jazzwise when it comes to artistic exchange between Canada and Europe. For this occasion, we have invited some experts from Canada for you today for this first session about Canada. Our host for this session is Heather Gibson. She's the executive producer at the National Arts Center. And our speakers today are Rainbow Robert, artistic director at Vancouver International Jazz Fest, and also director at Jazz Festivals Canada. We have then Danielle Lefebvre, founder of Danielle Lefebvre Artist and Concert Agency. We have Maurin Auxéméry, programmer at Montreal International Jazz Festival. Kodi Hutchinson, president at Chronograph Records. And here we are. Before giving the word to Heather, let me tell you that if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to send them via chat and on Facebook in the comment section, and we will collect them. After the session, we will have time to answer your questions. We have also prepared a fact sheet for you regarding our session today. You will find the link now in the chat and on Facebook in the comment section. Okay, Heather, feel free. It's your turn.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. And so I wanted to, because we just have a short hour together, I thought I would just jump right into this and perhaps start with Rainbow. If you could talk a little bit about jazz festivals in Canada. As we know, festivals are often a very good way to break into a new market for people. And you being an expert with Jazz Festivals Canada, can you give us an overview of what is going on in this country?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a really vibrant jazz festival culture in Canada. We work formally through the Jazz Festivals Canada network with 22 festivals that range from Halifax, Nova Scotia, all the way to Victoria, British Columbia. So we work from coast to coast. And one of the main things that we collaborate on together is block booking. So we certainly depend on each other to make sure that we have a really broad palette of programming that we are able to move across the country. The geographic separation between all of us, one of the beautiful benefits of that is that it makes collaboration a necessity. And in order to bring music from abroad and in order to create better opportunities for artists who are touring across Canada, because there's such a huge distance between our countries, it takes away any feeling of competition between us, which does exist in other places. And it also bands us together to put together broad programs where artists will have, you know, between 5 and 7 dates touring across festivals, ranging from coast to coast.
Thank you. And Danielle, to follow up on that, you know, Rainbow says 5 to 7 festivals. You're a booking agent here, and I know that you work with both sending Canadians out, but also bringing other tours into this country. What would you say is a reasonable approach to booking in Canada, sort of reasonable expectation for people coming here the first time?
Yeah. It's not always easy. In fact, we mentioned at the beginning that Canada is a large territory, a small population, and one of the logistic challenge is you will not drive necessarily from one festival to the other. So if you have 7 to 8 festivals, maybe you will have to fly every time. Because otherwise it will be a 12 to 15 hours drive between each festival, which is not realistic. So there's a lot of money involved when you are traveling. So when you are planning to say, I want to tour in Canada, it's just not the fact to approach the festival and interest them into your project. It is also to plan financially how you will do that. And of course, when you are part of a country that can support your tour financially, it will help a lot to organize and to organize the tour and make it viable financially. So that's something you really have to think about, because the festivals usually will not say I'm paying for everything. They will pay the fees, they could provide accommodation and help with that, but they cannot afford, even if you have 7 or 8, it will be too much for them. I'm sure they would, maybe Rainbow or Maurin could say that they could help sometimes, but the majority, they could not support all the travel. So you have to be prepared and find financial support. So that's something I'm saying, yeah. And you have to be willing to travel. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're thinking you are flying, so you have to think that, oh, okay, I'm flying from Toronto to Montreal to Halifax. You have to fly, so you have to be willing to tour that way also. It's different.
And to follow up on that, Maurin, I've been asked many times about you know, that we're so close to the States, and would you recommend as a festival buyer that somebody, a European artist, or we're touring both to the States and Canada, or is that a dangerous proposition?
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. You know, it's that it's looking very logical to be you know, touring in North America, like US and Canada. You know, it's like a big territory, but the fact that you have to cross borders from the US to Canada, it makes it a little more complicated. And generally, like the American government doesn't like that much that a band goes from Canada to the US like a few times on the tour. So if you're thinking about touring in North America, you should keep in mind that it's better not to do like Montreal, New York, and then Toronto, and then Chicago, and, you know, do like boom, 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 boom. No, you go from east to west in Canada, then you hit the US, or the other way around. It's not that logical touring wise, but that's the best thing to do because the US doesn't like it that much, unfortunately.
So back to you.
Yeah, sorry. No, I'm good.
Okay. Back to you, Sybille.
Yes, Rainbow, I have a question concerning this association, Jazz Festivals Canada. Can you just outline once again a little bit the role of this association in and outside Canada?
Our primary focus is to bring artistic directors together to collaborate on booking. We do adjust our services based on the support that the festivals express is most helpful. We also support other members of the staff through advocacy, but we found that our main focus is booking. So really the main activity that we undertake is we spend a week together. We pick a destination. It's usually Victoria, British Columbia, and all of the artistic directors gather together, and we spend a week in a boardroom, essentially inspiring each other about the music from our regions in order to share the music across Canada. But we also inspire each other with the music that we've seen when we've been out at festivals. And then we kind of convince each other to support each other's ideas and dreams and work on developing tours for artists.
Okay, Maurin, you as a programmer for such a big festival, I think it's the biggest in the world. Are you in connection with this association, and what is your feeling about that? Is it helpful for you, and can you add something to what Rainbow just said?
I mean, you know, the Montreal Jazz Festival is present in a couple of organizations like that. I think that JFC is one of the most efficient network that I've been part of. It's super interesting to meet all those you know, artistic directors and have all those conversations about music and business in general, music business. For me, it's, you know, it's very when you're in a country like Canada, you know, it's not always easy to bring artists from Europe and from the US, and you know, we're human, and sometimes we have like big crush on the musical projects, and we want them badly in our festival. And so, but you know, as a single festival, you kind contact the agent and tell him, hey, come to my festival. I have that kind of money, which is not, you know, like covering all the costs, like Danielle said previously. And so that's where the network is getting super interesting. It's, you know, like Rainbow said, we exchange many phone calls and emails before getting together in Victoria or in any other city in Canada, and we, you know, we can cook those tour for those artists that we love, and that makes our job easier. And I mean, we're not routing like hundreds of tours during those meetings, but you know, if we can get at least like 5 to 15 tours booked through this network, it's, you know, it's very, very good, and that's powerful, I think. And it's very interesting for the artists as well, because we're going to help them like in a meeting when, you know, we bring a name on the table, and let's say, you know, someone like Émile Parisien. We bring Émile Parisien on the table, and we, you know, we if someone around the table doesn't know Émile Parisien, we could take some time to listen to his music, and then we check if, you know, if there are like more than 3 people interested in the room, and if there's more than 3 people interested in the room, then we're starting to route a tour for him. So I'll be like, okay, we can go east to west or west to east. So I'll be on the July 1st. And then Rainbow is going to say, okay, so to give him more time to come to Vancouver. Okay, I'll be just before. I'll go June 24. And then, you know, we build this routing, and then we send that routing to the agent. Is like, okay, that's a good surprise for him, because he has a tour in the hands when, you know, he has not necessarily worked that hard to do it. Obviously, we can do that for like 50 different bands, and you know, it's year after year those names change, and so sometimes artists could have like good surprises coming to their inbox through their agents or managers. So I mean, this network is fantastic, and it's a very beautiful group of people as well. You know, we became friends through the years, and yeah, love this network.
That is perfect. One last question from my side, then I'm giving over to Heather again. How would you describe, let's say, not the percentage, but is Canada more looking for artistic exchange with European bands, or is it more because it's closer, open for United States artists? How can we, considering the landscape, can you say something about that? Maurin or Rainbow?
Okay,
Both
Rainbow,
of
do
you?
you wanna answer? Go ahead. All right, I'll go. I mean, yeah, we all have a different approach on that. At the Montreal Jazz Festival, it's very important for us to have like an interesting diversity in, you know, and yeah, obviously we're very, you know, we're in Quebec, so there's like a natural connection with countries like France and Switzerland and Belgium, you know, the Francophonie. And but you know, we are always very happy to have Armenian people coming to the festival, and Norwegian artists and Australian artists. So we're very open to all that. We, you know, there's a couple of institutions in Europe that contact us to organize stuff, and you know, we're always very yeah, we talk every year with the embassies or consulates to organize the kind of projects. But so I mean, I don't have any specific number to give here. Obviously, it's easier to book a band from LA or Chicago or New York because they're so close, and yeah, I mean, that's how I see it. Yeah, it's very, it depends. It depends.
I think too, as a follow-up, would you say it depends also that many Europeans have some funding base to come and to travel, and I think that is often, at least at the National Arts Center, that's something we take into consideration as well, of if an artist is being supported, where that level of support's not always necessarily the case in America. And so sometimes those European artists are, that distance, it doesn't matter because somebody says, oh, I have travel funds from my government or my arts council or my embassy. And so that's really, I find that quite helpful. Do you feel that way as well?
I'd say that plays a big role in decision making, and particularly for some of the European countries, there is a lot of consistency in terms of the need to have at least 3 activities when touring in North America in order to secure the funding. So we certainly work together to try and meet that goal so that people can secure the funding and tour in North America. And I can say for Vancouver, we've actually had to be careful not to have too small of a component of touring American artists because of that lack of funding. And we've had to commit funds to make sure that we have an adequate representation of American touring artists, particularly in the creative music realm. I think in the kind of more market value, big name arena, that's a bit of a different situation. It's built on different economics. But when it comes to touring more experimental or creative music, we do a lot of that. We present a lot of that work from Europe, and the funding that is often provided through the ability to provide multiple dates makes that activity possible. Without that funding, we would have never had as long of a history of presenting huge programs of European work.
And I'd say just from the Calgary side of things, that I'm listed as a record label here, but I'm also the artistic director for all the jazz festivals in our market, which is geographically in between Vancouver and Montreal, we're a little harder to get to than some of the bigger cities. So we definitely look at funded bands. So if you're, we do get a lot of European bands that have funding from different arts councils, whereas the American bands, like Rainbow said, there's a different economics when you're looking at them for headliner type work. But most, I would say the majority of our festivals at least are groups that are not major headliners. They're doing club shows and that type of thing. So having funding is huge.
So Kodi, I want to stick with you for a second and just change direction a little bit, and wondering if you can talk a little bit about what artists can expect when they come to this country. You know, some of the challenges. I know Danielle has touched on them a little bit with travel. Maybe some of the ways that the festivals operate, visa requirements, you know, all of those kind of things. As an artist, what should they expect?
Well, they discussed a bit with Danielle and Maurin talking about, you know, obviously going in and out of the U.S. I'm also spent many years working as an artist touring, and yes, that if you're going into the U.S., do it once. Either fly into the U.S. and then come into Canada, or go into Canada and then go into the U.S. The more you cross that border, it's a nightmare. But the other challenges, there's, you know, every country has different ways to get their visas into Canada. I would say do some research on that. As I know, touring to Europe myself, you have different visa requirements going into each country there, and you have to approach different organizations, and you need to give yourself lead time. So one of the things I think, Rainbow, we had talked about this outside the meeting at one point, was the amount of time, if you're going to come to Canada, that you should lead in advance of your tour. You know, for example, if I'm a Canadian artist and I want to tour into the US, I need to give myself at least 4 months so I know I can get my visas. That's a short lead time if you want to come to Canada, just because the travel is onerous. It's quite a ways to go if you're going to go more than one part of the country. So you need to get a lot of lead time coming in, that type of thing. And each festival is different in how they book and what they support. So be aware that some of the festivals, if they were talking to you first and were very interested, you might get hotel rooms, you might not. You might have on the ground transportation, you might not. So you have to budget these things in when you're traveling in, knowing that, okay, there's certain things that each market can support and other ones can't. So when you're going to larger festivals, you'll probably have transport. When you go to a smaller festival, you might have some difficult times.
Maurin?
If you may, I'd like to add something. You know, there are challenges, but there are like good points as well in coming to Canada. And I've seen like a question about it in the chat. When you are a European artist, you don't need to have a visa to come and play in Canada. You need to go through the process of, I can't remember the name, AVE, A-V-E. I can't remember if it's the right name. It's just like a 15 euros or $15 like checkup. You check in, you need to do on the Canadian government thing, but there's no visa, like working visa, as you need to get when you're touring in the US, for instance. So it makes it easier to tour in Canada, and that's an interesting thing. So another question, how it is for Japanese artists? I think that Japanese don't need to get a working visa as well.
Mm-hmm. Danielle, did you have something to add?
We're talking about visa, but there is also more paperwork to do if you do not want that 15%. Is it 15% of your fee to be withheld by Canada Revenue Agency? So they are a process for a tax waiver application, and then they are also, if you have this, you have to fill out 1 year later. After the fiscal year, you have to fill out the déclaration, la déclaration du revenu de...
Yeah, revenue declaration.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So there's a lot of paperwork to think about also. So there are some experts that can help, agents can help, festivals can help sometimes. So festivals like when agents are involved, because usually they will support the artists with that. So that will make less work for the festival. But sometimes when there's no agent involved, I believe the festival is helping also with that. But there's a lot of paperwork to do also about
We
taxes.
we provide information, but we don't necessarily help in this process, because that would be super time consuming for us with all the
It's complicated
artists coming to
also.
the festival.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's complicated because sometimes it's specific to different countries according to the treaties also. So that's why sometimes you have to go with experts. So the festival doesn't have the expertise, but could help by providing what you have to do.
I think it's important to note as well, though, that you as a festival or myself as a venue, we can't actually file a waiver on behalf of an artist. And that's one of the misconceptions that we deal with a lot. Is I often have American artists and agents thinking that we're going to do that for them, and we actually can't. So we can provide a lot of information, but the application has to come from the touring artist or the agency that whatever the company is behind. But I want to just, as I seen the clock go here, Danielle, I want to stay with you, and I want to switch a little bit here and talk about venues outside of festivals. Performing arts centers, multidisciplinary centers, jazz clubs. What can, if you wanted to tour outside of the festival season, what's available here in Canada?
Of course, it is possible. What we haven't mentioned about the jazz festivals, what is really great. They are starting like kind of end of June till mid of July. So that's why they can kind of block book together. But there are other festivals happening in August and September and other period of the year. As you mentioned, Heather, there are also jazz clubs everywhere in the province, mainly in larger cities, I would say, but there's a lot of, so of course these places will be more intimate, there will be different kind of fees instead of guaranteed fees. It could be shared door deals, so you can discuss different things like that. The multidisciplinary presenters, it's a really large market and really interesting, but these presenters usually present dance, theater, circus, humorist, and music. And music, it's not only jazz, but you can have the chance to perform in their music series also. There are other festivals that are not jazz festival, but they will have a jazz scene also. So there are different possibilities. Of course, it's when you get to know the market and you have the contacts that you begin to know what are the possibilities, but there are other possibilities during the year and the season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Kodi, there's quite a market as well, isn't there, for jazz festivals doing what we call in-season programming. So if you've made connections with the festivals themselves, there may be opportunity outside of that June to July that Danielle has mentioned.
Oh yeah. For example, what we do in our market, we started as a year-round concert presenter. Then we started doing festivals during the year, and then we also support clubs that do jazz in the market. So at least here, I know we present or co-present around 200 to 250 shows a year in market. So that allows for a lot of range. Obviously, larger shows where costs are more, those are going to be a little bit more challenging for you to get it on a short notice. On a long turn time, you should be okay. But I know more, especially because of the pandemic, more and more festivals are talking about doing more in-season shows, and I'm sure Maurin or Rainbow can talk about that. But I've been seeing a lot of different organizations trying to spread the shows out and mitigate the risk by doing things mid-season and over the winter and that type of thing.
Sybille, over to you.
Yes, I would like to go the other way around, look a little bit on questions and aspects for you or for those people who want to send artists from Canada to Europe. So perhaps some practical advice for programmers who want to connect with artists and try to book them. Are there any special advice for them? What can we say about perhaps international partnerships, longer lasting artistic exchanges? I'm not sure. Perhaps I can ask Rainbow about that first of all.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things that we have found takes a lot more time to build. Certainly because we do work together on booking because of the geographic nature of our country, we're able to bring a lot of European artists over, but stimulating the reciprocity there has been a bit of a long road. So we're always advocating to our colleagues who program jazz festivals in Europe and talking to them. We try and be ambassadors for Canadian music as much as possible because we have some truly beautiful music happening across the country. And we have slowly been able to build some beautiful reciprocal programs. One of the strongest that we actually have out of Vancouver is with the Jazz Topad Festival in Poland. Piotr Turkowicz has been somebody who's really stood by his word and presented a Vancouver band every year since we've been working together. And it's no small feat, you know, and he started this festival and he's doing really beautiful work. He has been at our festival in Vancouver for a number of years and has really stood by his word and provided real opportunities for Canadian artists and been really happy about what it's added to the program. I think some of those relationships that come out of those exchanges are extremely valuable. We'll see Polish artists coming to Vancouver every year. And we do have similar collaborations that are ongoing with other festivals. But I would say that Poland gets the prize in the past decade for the reciprocal nature of what they've done for Canadian artists.
Okay, this is so this is perhaps also an invitation to others, to other Europeans, to get in contact with you, Rainbow, or with whom should they get in contact to develop such exchange, artistic exchange partnerships?
Absolutely. We're, you know, we don't formally represent artists, although our entire existence is based on, you know, being there to support and enjoy and share the work. But absolutely, you know, all of these relationships that we have with the people who do the same jobs as us across Europe, we always welcome the opportunity to share some of our inspiration about the beautiful, beautiful music that's coming out of Canada, a lot of which has been, frankly, really influenced by some of the beautiful music that we've been bringing over from Europe for decades. So I think people are often really pleasantly surprised with the level of artistic output that's happening all across Canada. I mean, you see artists like Chris Davis, who we're all going to be collectively working with through the program here at Jazzahead. You know, she's one of the most exciting jazz piano players in the world, and she's from Canada. And I think that certainly relationships that Canadian and European programmers have shared have allowed us to discuss how exciting her work is, and just to see, you know, her notoriety growing. I think she's an amazing example of somebody who is celebrated equally, like maybe even more so in Europe and the US. These days, being based in New York, so that she's a huge success story in that respect.
And so in the realm of partnerships, Kodi, as a label, if you kind of put your label hat on here for a second, because we've drifted through all the different things that you're involved with, how are you making partnerships as a label, showcase decisions? Are you actively bringing Europeans or non-Canadians into those? Is a reciprocity also part of your equation?
Well, the nature of our label is to support artists from the western part of Canada. So basically west of Ontario. So we're a bit different than some labels, but what we do is when we're taking artists to Europe is we do partnerships with distributors, that type of thing there. And then we do get a lot of contact from European artists asking about getting label deals in Canada. And what we will typically do is point them in the right direction of there are different labels in Canada that will take artists from outside of the country. There's distribution deals you can do. There's, lots of information about radio trackers, different ways to promote your music here. And I find most of the labels in Canada are pretty open to help, point people in the right direction, whether they can or can't do it themselves. And so, because we know for us trying to bring artists to different markets, it's really helpful. And it's the same thing with people trying to come into Canada as well.
So I'm going to turn to a question we have here. And just I'm going to throw this out to any of you who are willing to answer this. Do you find in Canada that that people are very open in programming to the kind of jazz, or and crossovers between jazz, smooth jazz, and instrumental? Is everything welcome, or do you find the festivals are very focused and they're much more particular to this is what we do? Can you kind of speak to the artistic nature of the festivals in Canada?
Rainbow, you want to start? No?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I think certainly every festival has a different artistic vision. And some festivals, focus a lot more on straight ahead jazz. Others are really extremely focused on creative music and music that's maybe shocking and surprising. And I suppose depending on the size of the festival, certainly in Vancouver, we have the full scope. So we have a really large audience, and we definitely aim and are very serious about providing something that's going to be there for every different taste. So we do a lot of more traditional work. But certainly some of the more challenging and surprising work is what we've been focused on, is kind of part of the heart of our creative program. And, as collaborators working together, we try and reconcile our tastes and find common areas of taste. I mean, Maurin's festival is also certainly very broad in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the broader festival in the network. We maybe what is important at the festival is to keep at least 50% of the programming in the jazz world, like really jazz. And when we're talking about jazz, it's like jazz into its full diversity. And we're not, I think the questions refer to smooth jazz. It's not necessarily what we present at the festival, but we're open to everything as long as we feel that there's an audience and an appetite for it here in Montreal. That's how we see it. And as Rainbow said, there's also the programming team was like a special. We try also to please our own tastes when we're building the programming. So yeah, the only parameter we give ourselves is to present like good music at the festival. That's it.
Quality is pretty much the first thing you look at, regardless of what type of music it is. Is it something that you think your market, that people will want to see? And then if they're there, your hope is that it's really great. So when they walk away, they say, you know what, I want to come back. I want to do more shows. I want to learn more. And that's kind of for myself as a I would say mid-sized presenter relative to Rainbow and Maurin are two of the largest festivals in the country, versus we're kind of middle size. So we're looking for different things to expose people to, and at the same time we want to make sure that, because we can't buy as many groups, we want to make sure that they're great and that people want to keep coming back, so we can keep growing and bring more people to the festival each year and bring more bands to the festival.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
you can,
go
yeah,
ahead.
just a few words more on that. It's funny to see, you know, we have all the same approach on the quality of the music, but it's funny to see how different are the programming of all those festivals we're talking about in the Jazz Festival Canada organization. And you know, I'm always very impressed on the job that Rainbow and her team did in the past to develop that, you know, a super lefty weird jazz. She has like a great audience for that, and you know that's something that we cannot present at the Jazz Fest, because every time we're trying to present that, the audience is not there, and we don't, you know, we've never reached, or we've never been able to develop that kind of audience. So that's very funny, that part, you know. And it, you know, it's about history and development throughout the years, and you know, we're talking about festivals that are 30 40 years old, so it's like a long process, I guess.
Well, and I think too that it's fair to point out that we started with Sybille talking about the size of this country, and there's great diversity from coast to coast to coast. And so, as many of you are typically would have been looking for tourism as a piece of your audience, you do have a home base, and you know your home base audience, the people who live and the culture of Vancouver is very different than the people who live in the culture of Winnipeg or of Calgary or of, so we are not a homogeneous country, you know, in the ways that our cities are, and the people who live there, and the culture that's influenced. You know, we're also a country that is heavily influenced by immigration, and so we see in certain cities great influence by different parts of the world in those countries. But I wanted to follow up here on a question from, and I'm not going to put any of the festivals on the thing. I actually want to ask Danielle what you've heard about the outlook for summer concerning festivals in Canada. What are you hearing as an agent and manager of the, you know, this 2021? I had to look at the date for a second to remind myself, the 2021 summer that's in front of us.
Maybe first I could speak about Quebec, because every province, they have different situation. The COVID is evolving differently also, so the rules are different, the restrictions are different. But in Quebec, we have an announcement, I believe it's last week, that the venues can start to program again with an audience. So it will start on the 26th. So tomorrow. So also some festivals are moving forward. So, and I read this morning there was a newsletter from Sortie Jazz Night. I read the newsletter this morning. So they were talking about the Montreal Jazz Festival, but Maurin could talk more about it. But you already released some names on the program. And they were talking about the Festival du Saguenay. Usually they used to be in April, but now they will have a programming in June. And then there are a few festivals like Quebec, like Mont Tremblant, Rimouski, maybe I'm forgetting one, that the programming is about to be released soon, so maybe within a few weeks. So I think there are things that are going on. So how will that work? So how will evolve the restrictions? It's another question. I had some discussion, for example, with the Toronto Jazz early last fall, and they were not sure how it will go for the next edition. So there are also still question marks. So maybe Rainbow or Maurin or Kodi could talk about their own things. But so there are things happening, and there are other things that will be released soon, and there will be something going on. For example, Quebec Jazz en juin, it will be only Quebec artists, local artists for them, the programming, if I read and I remember well. So Maurin, Rainbow, Kodi, could you add on this?
I think that if the audience here on this panel is mainly European people, or you know, people from outside Canada, I would recommend not to try to make any move for this summer in Canada. It's not the best timing, and the situation was going in the right direction, and then this morning we had like a giant jump of cases here in Quebec. So I mean, I don't see a normal situation coming back before summer 2022. And if there's a festival this summer, it's going to be mainly with local artists and Canadian artists. Maybe if we can move from a province to another one. And yeah, so that's where we are all together. It's complicated.
Yeah,
And
we have different stages in Alberta as far as what's allowed to happen, and the last thing that's allowed to open is live performance, and that's they just announced last week that that's being held. So we were supposed to move forward, and then cases start to rise. So same thing. Canadian, we're looking at for sure. Bands within striking range of our market from driving. So Alberta groups, probably maybe some groups from Saskatchewan or BC, but then there's also been cross-province regulations as well. So like Maurin said, if you're looking to tour, if you were looking to tour in summer of 2021, it would be too late if you're coming from Europe anyway. You want to be looking at least a year to 2 years in advance. Probably 2 years is a good way to look at coming to Canada to get everything in order, and then you can get a nice robust tour and get shows together. Mm-hmm. Rainbow?
Yeah, I think I would echo what both of you have said. Certainly, most people who are going to be hosting any live events in the normal dates where they would be presenting are doing a program that's purely local. Other people have kind of made moves to look at moving the dates of their presentations to a time of the year when they feel that they'll be able to do something that's closer to what they normally do. So the approaches are varying from city to city, but in general, anyone who's presenting anything in a live format is not able to predict whether they'll be able to have an audience at this point. So many people are, programming events for local artists, knowing that they might be able to have a very small audience, and if not, they'll be streaming it out. And then other people who want to have something that's a lot closer to what they normally present are maybe shifting dates forward into a time of year when it seems like the outlook will be improved.
And I think it's important to note, just so that we're not, presumptuous, that people know what's happening in this country, is that our borders are closed. And that's part of the reason when you start talking about the locals. And in fact, some of our provincial borders are closed in this country. So you can't travel from one province to the next without quarantining for 2 weeks. So that's when these guys are talking about the local, it has to do even, we're even being asked not to restrict our non-essential travel. And of course, you could make an argument that this was your work and it was essential, but there is a sentiment in Canada of keeping travel to quite a minimum in most regions of the country. So it does, I think, as to echo what Maurin said, it feels like it's not the right time. If this is, if you're anticipating coming to Canada for some reason, we're I think likely looking at it. September, October is starting to feel a little bit better, but that's even iffy in certain parts of the country. But Maurin, did you have something?
Yeah, just to set the record straight, if you go on Montreal Jazz Festival website, you'll see shows that are supposed to happen this coming summer. But that was shows that were postponed from 2020 to 2021. And we're not exactly ready to cancel those shows, but the situation is not good. So just, if you go on the website, you'll see those shows. But it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. That's it.
I will add one thing though, is when we're talking about locals, I know a lot of festivals are doing online presentations, that type of thing. So if you happen to have a very robust and cool virtual presentation that you can promote to festivals, that would be a smart thing to do right now, because everyone's looking for great digital content. So if you have it, this is your time.
This is a wonderful
very
invitation.
Good point. Very good point.
Excellent. Yeah.
So I think on that high note, Sybille, was there anything that you would like to add at this point to bring us to a close, perhaps?
Well, I don't see any further questions. You can still feel free to send some questions via chat or as a Facebook comment, and we can answer them right now. If this isn't, I was just told that there are questions coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So one of the questions I read here, which would be, I think, something this group can answer, is with more and more musicians becoming entrepreneurs, how much do you deal with artists directly without agent representation? Is that a common thing, or do you mostly deal with agents? Why don't we start with you, Kodi? You're nodding here.
Because of the size of our festival, we typically deal directly with the artists. Only on our main stage shows will we be looking at dealing with agents. Generally, I would say because there's just more club shows and that type of thing, you'll see more contact with artists directly.
It's definitely a mix here in Montreal. We do talk with the agents and managers, especially for the bigger acts, and we have a lot of contacts with the individual musician and artist, local mainly, but a few of them are from anywhere in the world. So depends. We're open to everything. It's easier to talk to an agent because you're going to spend 30 minutes with this agent and you're going to go through like multiple projects. So it's better. But yeah, we're not close to any situation.
I think when you talk about that, Maurin, right, it's about being prepared, because an agent, they're selling something very specific. They've put together a package. They're very targeted. Whereas with artists, quite often you're trying to share everything that you do. Just be really specific, targeted, keep the communication really tight and focused. And that's because of just the amount of time that each of us has to devote to certain things in a day. The more focused you are and the more clear your materials are and concise, the better. So please don't send me a 40-page bio. I'm not going to read it. I don't have time. But if you send me some good videos, some good music, some very focused promo materials and very clear, when you're saying, hey, I'd like to tour Canada, it's better if you say, hey, I'd like to tour Canada. I'm looking at coming through on these dates at this year, at this time. Do you have availability? That's much easier for us to answer than try and help you set up what your tour might be.
Yeah, thank you for this practical advice. This is always very helpful. Well, are there any further questions? I'm not sure if I'm updated right now, so I don't see any further questions. This would mean for me to say thank you to our very lovely guests today, our speakers, Heather, our host. For the participants of the Zoom meeting, right after the end of the session, there will be a short survey coming up to your screen. Please take a few minutes to answer the questions and give us some feedback. This is only for the Zoom meeting participants, not the Facebook participants. And then, yes, let me say that this was only a first step. We will hear much more about Canada, from Canadians, about Canada, from artists from Canada, etc. So we will have plenty of time to develop all this, and we will see each other at a Jazzahead Digital Edition in a couple of weeks now. So it's only 5 weeks left. So thank you all, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.